Hello again, my mental snack food craving friends. This is Devin offering a response to the 10 questions that every Christian must answer. First off, since of course we were asked to look at this in a critical thinking kind of way, I thought it's important to point out that what's been presented is a false dilemma. There are actually more than just two options. This then, of course, takes us to the fact that just because the church lied and continues to lie about God doesn't mean there is no God. If we allow God to be God and not some construct of the church, then of course we get truth. And that's what I'm here to talk about. So to do that, let's of course revisit the questions under this new light. Number 1. Why won't God heal amputees? Well, the answer is because the body doesn't have the ability to regenerate, and God only works with what's already there. For God to heal amputees would have to completely and fundamentally alter the very genetic structure of the human form. 2. Why are so many people starving in our world? The basic reality is that governments refuse to share with the less fortunate. It has nothing to do with God. The reality is we produce more than enough food to feed the entire planet. However, the only reason that we don't share it is because the governments of the modernized world either can't or won't share with the other world because of political issues about money and funding and power and control and all of that. So it has nothing to do with God and everything to do with government. 3. Why does God demand the death of so many innocent people in the Bible? The answer, of course, is that the church lied. By making people afraid of God, made the people go to church. It was simply a way to ensure that people went to church, and if they were afraid, they were more than happy to dole out money and commit to coming so that they could get forgiven and not be punished. 4. Why does the Bible contain so much anti-scientific nonsense? Well, mainly because the Bible was written hundreds of years ago before this thing we call science, and can't change it now because if they were to do that, it would pretty much signal to all of the world that the Bible is a construct of man and not of God, and therefore it's fallible and therefore wrong, and therefore it would destroy the whole Bible in the church, so therefore they can't touch it. 5. Why is God such a huge proponent of slavery in the Bible? That would be because when the Bible was written, that was the way things normally were done. Slavery is by no means a new idea. It was around for a long, long time. Like the whole point of, the Israelites being enslaved by the Egyptians. It really wouldn't have done good to have a consistent story if there was no such thing as slavery, because of course that was part of the whole starting point of it all, wasn't it? 6. Why do bad things happen to good people? Well, of course, good and bad are false judgments. More often than not, the events that are happening are really basically lessons that we need to learn and simply are not being learned. Number 7. Why didn't Jesus' miracles in the Bible leave behind any evidence? Primarily, that would be because the church over-exaggerated the miracles. The story simply grew over time. Most of the miracles Jesus performed were more healing arts, and of course, once the person dies, how is there going to be any evidence? If their bones aren't preserved, they're toast. Of course, looking at things like water into wine, back in that era, the average farmer, poor person, would have never had any idea what a fermented beverage of any kind was. So Jesus simply turning, say, water into something like beer, just simply mistranslate the word wine, because of course that wouldn't have been a common word in that era, then of course the people would have been absolutely dumbfounded and mystified that he had done this and would have taken it as a miracle. 8. How do we explain the fact that Jesus has never appeared to you? Well, like Socrates, Jesus was a very wise person trying to help people, not a god. Just like Socrates, once he's dead, his teachings, his wisdom, his learning continues, but he himself is sadly gone. 9. Why would Jesus want you to eat his body and drink his blood? Well, Jesus wouldn't. However, the church, by making people sinners for eating flesh and drinking blood, bonds them to the church. Because now, of course, they have to go to the church to get absolution for the sin they committed in eating flesh and drinking blood, pretty much ensured that they weren't going anywhere. Plus, it's a pretty powerful act, and that act alone, on a more positive side, would have bonded the people together, which of course would have then further bonded them to the church. And finally, number 10. Why do Christians get divorced at the same rate as non-Christians? That would be because most people get married so they won't have to be alone, which is not a very solid reason for getting married. So, of course, as soon as things start getting rocky, people tend to abandon ship. Like everyone else, Christian and non-Christian alike, it has nothing to do with God and has to do entirely with other issues that are being unresolved and unchallenged, which are basically adding more misery and working hard to destroy life instead of adding to life. Again, which has nothing to do with God, but more has to do with not actually dealing with the real God. The sad, simple truth is that we really don't know that much about the reality of the true God. We know the church's version of God, we know the propaganda version of God, we know the controlling version of God, but we don't really know that much about God, really. So, if you would like to learn more about the deeper reality and mystery of God, the real thing, MindMunchies will be working on a series shortly. So be sure to come and check it out. This isn't going to be what you expect. This isn't going to promote one form of religion over another. It's going to be dealing with the simple, basic human nature version of the reality of God. The stuff that we already all know in the heart and soul that we're just not dealing with because other issues and other problems just get in the way and confuse reality.